words that we say to our dogs, they're corrective. You know what I mean? And that's not what we want, right? We know that we don't want that. That's why you're here, listening to this podcast, because you don't want to do that, right? And so we've got to figure out a different plan. And so if we're going to step into the role of, if we're going to step into our role as guide and role model, then we've got to figure out a different way to be in the moment. Hi, I'm Kathy Kowalik, and I believe that our dogs connect us to the heart and soul of what really matters in life. So hang out, and we'll take a deep dive into the human-dog connection and explore strategies that will inspire you to create legendary, enlightened partnership with your dog. This is the Enlightened by Dogs podcast. Well, hey there, friends. Kathy here, your host of Enlightened by Dogs. I hope you are doing well. And so today I thought I'd talk to you about this idea of like what to do when your dog doesn't listen. Now, I mean, that just conjures up all kinds of things, and even the most amazing dog parents have thoughts and say things out loud or share things, like, my dog's not listening. He just refuses or ignores me, or I know she knows how to do this, or, you know what I mean? And we fall into this, I don't know, this like trap of judging what our dog is communicating, right? So, we go back to, remember I say this a lot, behavior is communication, right? And even though we understand that, and even though we live with that understanding and we deeply integrate that into our life, there are still times when we just go, oh God, why are you refusing to do this? Why are you ignoring me? You're like, you don't usually do this. You know better than this. Like, hey, guilty as charged, right? So what do we do about that? And how do we move forward from and move through that place where we have those thoughts, or we have those feelings inside of us? And it seems like that is what is happening, right? Well, there's a better way. And so I'm here to talk to you about more deeply understanding our dogs and like swapping things around, reframing those thoughts and reframing our thinking about what is actually happening. And so when we do this reframing, we're kind of going under the surface, and we're looking to more deeply understand and to connect with our dogs and, sort of step into their paws, so to speak, so that we can meet them where they are and make a plan with them that's going to get us on, back on track, back on the same page, and back on a path toward being attentive and responsive. And so it starts with really listening, and you hear me talk about that all the time, and being present and being in dialogue with our dogs, and building trust, and creating that circle of safety and trust with our dogs. And those are all the things that lead us to living with our dogs in a way that they love to listen, and not just listen to our commands or our cues or our pleas, whatever, but to actually take responsibility for and have a deeper understanding of their role in our life together. You know what I mean? And so we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this today. Okay. Hope you're up for this. I hope you're excited about this. And so we're going to just dive a little bit deeper underneath the surface. And so when we have that thought, or we believe that our dog is not listening, what I would invite you to do is to reframe that into, my dog has a need that isn't being met. Okay. So there's a need that's not being met. And so not listening might become something like, well, they didn't hear you in the first place, or didn't process what you said or what you asked. Maybe they were already involved in something else. They already had like their own plan in their head. They were already doing something. Maybe they're stressed, tired, overwhelmed, and just not able to do what you're asking. You know what I mean? And so it's so that when that reframe of not listening is really powerful. And, something like, my dog is being disrespectful or choosing not to listen, reframes into something like, well, they already have a plan. They're already involved in something else. Or someone might tell you, maybe your husband will say, you're just spoiling her, and we can reframe that into, well, our dogs are communicating their desire for what they want and what they need, and they're doing it through their behavior because they don't have the language to communicate their needs and their desires effectively in another way. You know what I mean? And so we can help with that. We can teach them how to communicate by listening in a different way. If they become barky or whiny, demanding, well, we could reframe that and, say, why are you so demanding and so annoying and so whiny? Stop that, right? We can reframe that into, well, they need help. They need some help with what you're asking them to do. Maybe it's help with skills, or maybe it's help with needing them to be a certain way, like needing them to be calm and quiet right now while you do so, because you have something to do, like maybe you have work to do, etc. Right? And so if we just keep going back to, behavior is communication, and we want to dive underneath the surface and have a deeper understanding. Now, that's not to say that the behavior as is okay and we should just accept it and we should just take what that behavior can be, which sometimes like if our dog is jumping on us or pulling on the leash or barking incessantly or whatever, or biting our legs or nipping, you know what I mean? I mean, not to say that we should just accept those behaviors as okay. Well, my dog is just communicating. Okay. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to understand that our dog is communicating something and go underneath the surface so that we can either meet our dog's needs or teach them how to communicate their needs in a different way that is not, in effect, like abusive to us, right? Because I mean, that can really hurt us, if our dog is jumping and bouncing off of us or pulling on our clothes or biting or barking and, and causing us stress. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I just wanted to be clear about that. So yes, behavior is communication, and I'm not implying that it's acceptable. What I am saying is that what's not acceptable is that we don't dig underneath that communication and figure out what's happening and figure out together with our dogs how to figure out a plan to make this work for everyone so that everyone feels safe, calm, and happy. Okay. And so one of the ways that we do that, another way, so one is a reframe, right? And another way is to think about role modeling. You hear me talk about role modeling all the time. And another way to think about that is like becoming the guide and to establish a deeper connection with our dog, a heart-to-heart connection that will enable you to step into this role modeling, this guide, to be the guide, right? And so when we have those thoughts, so my dog won't listen, won't do what I say, is refusing, is ignoring, is pretending that, they don't hear us, right? It brings up, when that happens, that brings up emotions in us, and those emotions trigger us to react, right? And we may say things, those emotions may cause us to say things like, just listen to me, or hurry up, or stop barking, stop whining, or you know better. You know what I mean? Like, how many times do I have to call you, right? Like, how many times do I have to ask you to walk at my side and stop pulling me? You know what I mean? And so that's what we have the urge to say. That's what we're triggered to react as, right? And so we end up saying things like, you're not going to be able to go play in the pool if you don't walk at my side. You're not going to, if you do this, then you can do that. And so we end up like bargaining or bribing or correcting, like doing it through this intention of correcting, like, unless you do that, you can't have that. And the what's not effective about most of that is that we are coming from a place of annoyance and a place of reactivity. You know what I mean? We are reacting to our dog's behavior / communication. And when we do that, we are in effect disconnecting. When we have those phrases, or we say those words, or we have those thoughts, those are disconnecting thoughts. Those are disconnecting words that we say to our dogs. They're corrective. You know what I mean? And that's not what we want, right? We know that we don't want that. That's why you're here, listening to this podcast, because you don't want to do that, right? And so we've got to figure out a different plan. And so if we're going to step into the role of, if we're going to step into our role as guide and role model, then we've got to figure out a different way to be in the moment. And so one of the things that we could do is just to intend and learn how to become more clear. Clarity is difficult sometimes, but it's always effective, right? And as Brene Brown says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And so we want to learn how to be more specific and more clear, right? And to know that this lifestyle, you hear me talk about, this is a lifestyle, right? These are not training sessions or isolated incidences. This is a lifestyle. And so when we see our interactions with our dog as a lifestyle, we start to understand that just because sometimes, we're spending a few minutes playing with our dog, or we spend a few minutes cuddling with our dog, or we spend a few minutes, walking, teaching our dog how to walk with us, or we spend a few minutes training, doing a fun training game, or we spend a few minutes it's not just that, because what's happening the rest of the day, the rest of the time? I mean, if all the rest of the time that we're not focused on those specific engaging activities, if we're like correcting them or thinking about how they're not listening or falling into bribing and luring and correcting and, saying words that we don't want to say, maybe we're nagging and we're asking over and over and, or telling them that they're doing things wrong. We don't want to do that. I know you don't want to do that, but that's how it could come off. And that's how our dogs can hear our communication. We want to strive for connection instead of correction all the time. I mean, we want to help our dogs feel loved, feel like they belong, feel that we love them unconditionally, irregardless of their behavior in the moment. We want them to feel like valued members of the family. You know what I mean? And so we want to flip that around, right? And start to think about how we can reframe and how we can become the guide and the role model instead, right? And so, taking a breath, take a moment and saying that to your dog, let's take a minute and figure this out, right? Instead of thinking or saying, well, you already know how to do this. Why won't you just do it? Instead, we can say, I can see that you're not wanting to do this right now. How can we figure this out together? Right? Instead of saying, how many times, do I have to tell you this? How many times do I have to call you? How many times do I have to ask you to stop barking? You can say, whoa, okay, this isn't working. Let me take a deep breath. And instead, engage with your dog, connect with your dog and say, let's figure this out. Let's make a plan for how we can figure out how to help you stop barking incessantly. Let's figure this out together. Instead of saying, stop barking, stop whining, right? We could say, I see that you have something to say. You're having an emotion about this, or you have a need that's not being met. We can say, okay, I see that you have something to say. Let's figure out what this is and what we can do about it. Right? Instead of saying, what to do, say, well, let's figure this out. Let's take baby steps. Let's chunk this down and make this into smaller steps that will be easier for you, right? Baby steps. Break it down. Let's do one thing at a time. What's next? Now what's next, right? So, I see you're excited to go for a walk, right? And you're jumping up and down. So first thing, let's see if we can get you to hold still and take a breath so I could put your harness on or put your leash on. Great. Now, let's see if we could figure out how to walk to the door and connect at the door before we step out disconnected. Great. Now let's see how we can walk through the doorway connected and together. Great. We took 2 steps. Wonderful. Now let's see what's next. How can we take the next 5 or 10 steps together? How can we walk to the car together in partnership? Like we're holding hands, right? What's next? So just keep thinking about baby steps and what's next, really chunking it down and figuring out how to work together with your dog. And we want to do this. And, I think even before that, we can say, well, I need to make a plan for this, right? Because I know that just to use this example of our dog getting like overexcited and over aroused at the thought of going for a walk, and then it starts everything off wrong, right? And it just keeps snowballing into, a ridiculous pulling, lunging, barking, spinning type of a walk that we are not interested in having, right? And so we can make a plan, right? Stop and think about it before you even start the process of taking your dog for a walk, before your dog gets excited. What's the plan? What can I do? How can I help us work through this before we even start, right? And so you want to discover the real reason that things are falling apart, why you and your dog are disconnecting, why your dog's communication is escalating in a way that you don't want it to, right? And your dog doesn't want to either, trust me, right? And so we want to understand our dog. We want to empower our dog. We want them to feel like our partners. Let's make a plan and engage your dog in that plan by listening and talking with your dog and trying things, right? And it's like a together activity, right? And you're experimenting, you're on an adventure of discovery together, right? And when we're in the moment of our dog is already, their communication has already escalated in a way that is so difficult for both of us, right? That's not a good time to make a plan, because it's, it's just too late, right? You know what I mean? And when we're engaged in our heads and thinking, we're that act of thinking about something and what we should do is all by itself automatically disconnecting us from our dog, which is likely to cause our dog's behavior to escalate even more. Okay. And so you want to think about this ahead of time. As soon as you see, that your dog's behavior is communicating something that you don't quite understand and you want to work it out so that you don't need to face that in the moment together, and when it's really difficult, and that's when you are going to have a tendency to be more reactive. You know what I mean? And so make a plan a little bit ahead of time, and like, what do I want? Get clear about what is it that you really want? Why is this difficult for your dog? Why is it a problem? How can we solve this together? What's our next step? What are our baby steps? What's next? And so we're looking for solutions, right? And to know that this is an ongoing process of tweaking, right? We're always tweaking the plan. We're always staying present. We're staying in dialogue, and we're discovering what's working, what's not working. Where do we have a communication fallout? Like where do I get reactive? Where am I getting impatient? Where am I getting annoyed? Where is my dog getting impatient? Where's my dog getting annoyed? You're like, well, that didn't work. No big deal. Let's just try it again. Let's try something else. Let's try this instead. Right? I mean, we're going for progress, not perfection. You know what I mean? And in the end, what we're doing, the big picture perspective is that we're helping to teach our dogs and ourselves, like how to be resilient. We're building confidence in ourselves and our dog's self-confidence. We're building trust between us and our dogs. You're building trust in, that you feel for your dog, and you're creating trust that your dog feels for you. You're nurturing self-awareness in yourself and in your dog, right? You're nurturing self-regulation. You're nurturing co-regulation. You're nurturing self-advocation. You're teaching your dog how to communicate in a better, softer way because you're listening, because you're interested in understanding. You know what I'm saying? And so when you are having the thought that your dog is not listening, remember that you can reframe your thoughts. You could reframe your thinking. You can connect instead of correct. You can make a plan together to understand and empower. And you can stay in that moment of dialogue and awareness and co-regulation. Remember that it takes two. A relationship takes two. A successful relationship takes both you and your dog taking responsibility for your parts of the partnership. All right, that's it, my friends. I hope you found this helpful. And let me know, get in touch, leave a comment, let me know how the impact that this is having for you. And in the meantime, just keep imagining what life can be like when you and your dog finally understand one another. All right, my friends, that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening. And hey, if you would like to work with me so that I can help you discover the missing pieces you need so that you and your dog can finally be happy and enjoy life together, then head on over to dancingheartsdogacademy.com and request your invitation to join us in the Brilliant Partners Academy when the doors open for the next enrollment. See you next time, and remember, a brilliant partnership with your dog makes your whole life brilliant.